it's my real pleasure to introduce Kiona Ogle. Kiona has actually been very, very tied up this week with an NRT that perhaps she's going to say something about at Northern Arizona. So Kiona Ogle is a professor in, let's see, I got to get it right, informatics, computing, and there's another one.
I have nothing to do with cyber systems.
Cyber systems, okay. But Kiona is also an ecologist and has been one of the leading people in graduate education, not just graduate, but postdoc and faculty education on Bayesian approaches in systems, and has run a workshop on that for many, many years. And is also a researcher who has applied a variety of modeling approaches to looking at ecosystem change due to climate changes. And today she's going to fill us in on some of her experience. So Kiona, thank you so much for taking the time out to do this. And I think there might be a few more people joining, but I think we might as well go ahead. Okay.
Okay, great. Well, thank you, Lou, for the intro and also for inviting me to participate in this workshop. I was really excited about it, but then I was bummed that I couldn't be here yesterday or earlier in the day because I was organizing and running our annual retreat for our NRT graduate training program. So if this was in March, I would have been here for the whole entire thing. So I plan on sticking around this afternoon and coming for all day of tomorrow, although I know I'm a little late coming into the conversations. But yeah, I did want to talk about the graduate program that we have at NAU, and that is supported by this NRT grant that we have. So let me share my slides and just, can you see them? Okay, great. All right, so I am a faculty in the School of Informatics, Computing, and Cyber Systems at Northern Arizona University, like Lou just said. And today I want to talk to you about a flexible graduate training program to build hard and soft skills that integrates informatics and ecology. And this is our kind of flagship new PhD program within our school. So within the school, which I'll just refer to as SIX for short, this is actually a new school at NAU. It was established in 2016. It merged existing programs like computer science and electrical engineering, which had been around for a long time, but also the new program of informatics and computing, which started about in 2015 and of which I was hired into upon coming to NAU. And within our school, SIX, which again is new since 2016, it's also pretty exciting that almost 3/4 of our faculty were also hired in the past 5 or 6 years. So our school is new and our faculty group is also pretty new. And if you look at the bar graph here that summarizes our faculty across the 3 different kind of subject areas or research areas within our school,
Kiona,
I'm within the, yes?
We're not seeing a bar graph. So okay. Something's not switching. All I'm seeing is School of Informatics Computing, the 6th thing across the top.
Oh, I see every, that's strange. You can't see the rest of the slide?
No.
Is that the same with everyone else? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I can't see it either.
Let me see all my slides. Okay, that is strange.
Maybe
So
the primary and secondary monitor is switched.
What's that?
Maybe the primary and secondary monitor is switched.
No, but you can see my slide, but just the header, right? Because that's the only place I have it.
This is Eric Carr. Is it possibly something where you move forward in your slide and you're seeing a presenter view with the complete slide?
I don't have presenter view. I was going to stop sharing and change the PowerPoint setting, but now I can't even see my sharing settings.
Go to the top of the screen and the Zoom thing should pop down.
I know, but it's not. I see my Zoom thing, but how come I can't stop? Oh, it's on the other side. Sorry, I don't know what's, let's see. And I'm also doing it through a Mac, which I never use. So I normally do it in Windows. Let's see. I'm going to try to change some settings. And I'll share again. And that's not what I wanted. You guys, do you see presenter view?
No, we're seeing a blank screen.
We see a blank screen right now.
Still a blank screen?
Yeah.
Okay, I do not know what is going on.
All right. Well, one option, you could email the slides to me or to Eric, and it depends how big it is. So,
Let me just try. I have two screens going on, so let me see if I try. Can anybody see it now?
I think it might be loading. Sometimes it takes a while to load, but it's blank right now.
Longer than usual.
Yeah.
yeah. No, it's still blank here.
Okay, well, I can try emailing it to you, Lou. I don't know why it's not. I haven't had this issue before.
Eric, other suggestions?
Try sharing your total screen as opposed to a window, and just open up the PowerPoint there.
Okay.
And we're not even getting your complete screen.
Okay, because I did that and you can't.
Are you still in? This was working earlier, so there shouldn't have been anything that changed. Oh, there we go.
Now. Yeah, now we see it.
And just make that full screen and go from there. Now we're seeing your presenter view.
This is so annoying. Okay. I'm going to do the other screen because I know it's going, okay, share screen. I'll do a desktop too. Share.
Oh, we got your travel expenses.
Don't look at it.
There we go.
Okay. Let's see if it changes when you click. Yes.
Yes.
All right.
Can you see the bar graph now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. That's not happened to me. And I've done many of these, so that's strange. Okay.
So computational data scientist, does it take to do that?
Oh, yeah. More than one. Okay, so this bar graph here is a summary of the faculty within our school, and I wanted to highlight this middle bar is the Ecological Environmental Informatics group, which I am part of, and then there's the two other groups within our school. So the majority of my group are actually new arrivals since the start of the school in 2016. And within our school, we have a variety of undergraduate programs. Some of them have already been around for a while at NAU: computer science, applied computer science, electrical engineering, computer engineering. But new is our informatics program, BS program, that allows students to bridge informatics tools with another discipline of their choice, like biology, ecology, or astronomy. But I really want to focus on the graduate programs, especially since that's related to this workshop. And we have master's programs, a couple of which are already existing or have been around for a while. And also we have the new informatics program. But today I want to focus on our doctoral program, our PhD program in informatics and computing, which I may also just refer to as INF for short. And within that program, students who are pursuing an INF PhD, they do that following one of four emphasis areas. And the emphasis area I'm going to talk about, and it's associated with my group, is the Ecological and Environmental Informatics, or Eco-Informatics group. And here I'm just showing you the number of students in our graduate program. So starting in 2016, since that's when our school started, and it's been growing steadily over time. And I don't have the data for 2020. So it goes up to last year's data of 2019, where we had over 50 graduate students in our program. And the top two colors here on the bar represent the PhD students in the ecoinformatics program. And actually, this whole bar includes master's students as well. But ecoinformatics students really make up the majority of the PhD student population. And since this is a relatively new program and is growing, with it, we're admitting about 10 to 15 students per year. And so we expect to reach a steady state around 65 to 70 graduate students in our program after over the next few years. And so given that this is a relatively new program that started in 2016, and we are just starting to bring in PhD students, that program was proposed prior to the establishment of SIX, when we had very few of our faculty here and very few course offerings. So that program didn't really match our faculty composition and the students that we're bringing in. So my group in particular, the ecoinformatics group, wanted to modify and upgrade, modernize our program, whatever, to reflect our expertise, our interests, and the kind of students that we want to train and recruit. So we sought an NSF NRT grant. We submitted a proposal to enhance this ecoinformatics PhD program, and specifically to modernize the curriculum and expand it, increase the flexibility, also integrate key skills related to soft and hard skills associated with team and collaborative approaches, bring in more professional development opportunities, and just grow the program in generally and try to make it internationally recognized. So we submitted this proposal and we were funded. And this is the funding that forms the basis of this T3 program in ecological and environmental informatics. And the 3 T's come from here. This is the proposal title: a new team-based, T-shaped scientist training paradigm integrating informatics and ecology. So the informatics part is sort of the quantitative component of our program, and the ecology part is, the life science aspect, and we're integrating these two within our program. So this was funded by an the NSF NRT program, and our funding started in 2018. And here's our leadership team. I'm the lead PI and the program director, and I have an excellent support team here of other faculty in our school. And we also have additional faculty that are participating, and either affiliate or direct faculty within SIX. And these faculty are also helping us to modify our curriculum and are advising PhD students within the program and teaching some of our classes. So in developing this NRT proposal, and for those of you who might be thinking of doing this as well, they ask for the motivating science questions or problems that motivate our training program. And what sort of encapsulates the range of interest and research approaches in our group is reflected in this motivating question here that kind of brings together these tools and approaches. And that's: how does anthropogenic global change affect health and productivity of terrestrial ecosystems? So a very general question. And within here, I just show you some example questions that our various research groups are tackling. And so falling underneath this main question here, associated with the questions related to global change impacts on carbon and water cycling, feedbacks between terrestrial ecosystems and climate relationships between disturbance and ecosystem resilience and biodiversity changes. But one of the key things here is that addressing these questions really requires an integrative and interdisciplinary approach. And those questions, again, are motivated by the expertise of our research group and faculty group who are integrating these kind of approaches and taking an interdisciplinary approach to tackling them. So this has formed the basis of our training program, this T3 program that's integrating informatics. So that's the data analytics, computing, statistical analysis, synthesis, and modeling aspect with ecological theory, principles, and data. And training our students in team-based, interdisciplinary, collaborative approaches, and also preparing them with communication skills and just providing them with additional career and professional development as they move through this program towards this interdisciplinary research approach. And here I'm just summarizing our faculty within this ecoinformatics group. And I'm doing this because I want to emphasize again the diversity of expertise and backgrounds and interests within the faculty. So for example, we have faculty in our group that have formal training and background in mathematics and statistics, for example, in engineering, in the life sciences, and in environmental and earth sciences. And along with that diversity, our faculty also use and apply a diversity of tools and methods. But what's common across all of us is that these methods are usually fairly computationally or quantitatively heavy. And we employ those methods to address questions in a range of ecological and environmental disciplines and topics. And so given this diversity of our faculty, we're also recruiting students, PhD students, into our program that come in with similar levels of diversity in terms of their skill, their background when they enter. So looking at the students here and just kind of summarizing how many students we have in the program and their general background, here I am showing you actually the number of students just in the Eco-Informatics PhD student group. And again, we started in 2016, and this is actually showing up through the current academic year. So this is through fall of 2020 based for these statistics. So we currently have about 21 PhD students in our Eco-Informatics PhD group. And of those students, if you look at their background prior to entering our PhD program, it's very diverse. We have students that have come in with bachelor degrees in quantitative fields, such as computer science, informatics, or engineering. But we also have quite a few students that come in from what I call more non-quantitative fields, biology, ecology, environmental science, for example. And actually, over half of our PhD students came into our program with master's degrees, which were similarly dispersed among these non-quantitative and quantitative fields. So really a strong diversity of students. And this last two bar here actually reflects students that were recruited into our program under the T3 NRT project. And so some of these students are also funded off of these fellowships that come with the NRT program. So the student backgrounds are really diverse, and also prior to entering the program, we administered an informal survey to learn more about the students' backgrounds, especially with respect to their quantitative training and how well they might be prepared for entering this fairly rigorous quantitative program. So we had 23 of the students respond to our survey, and we looked at their mathematics background and asked them basically their level of skills and formal training with respect to coursework and so forth. And the key message here is that most of the students do not have a whole lot of mathematics background. They might have 1 or 2 semesters of calculus, and there's a limited number of students that might have more advanced training at advanced undergrad or maybe even a graduate level course. But the majority only have at the level of 1 or 2 semester calculus. Their statistics background is also fairly similar. The majority have had just basic undergraduate stats or some sort of introductory graduate level stats for non-majors, but there's relatively few that have more advanced statistical training. And the third sort of important quantitative component is their computing skills and a computer science background. And so if you ask them about that background, you also see that many of them either do not have any formal training, they're just self-taught, or they've taken minimal coursework at the introductory undergraduate level, and very few have more advanced training, although there still are some that have some experience with more advanced languages and concepts. And if you look at the kind of programming languages that they're familiar with prior to entering our program and ask them how they've learned those languages, the blue bars here indicate that they basically have had no formal training and that they're essentially self-taught. Some of them do receive some training through coursework that they took either in their prior bachelor's or master's degrees. But the key thing here is that there's this great diversity amongst our students. They have some quantitative background, but not exceptionally strong if you just look at their actual experience in terms of coursework. And so that does pose some challenges when teaching to this diverse group of students in our graduate program. And as an example here, I'm listing 5 of our core PhD classes that are required of all students in the Informatics PhD program. There's a couple classes that are associated with computing coursework, and the other are associated with statistics. And these are all taught, at the PhD level for these students entering the program. So I asked the core faculty who teach these classes, how do they accommodate this diversity of student backgrounds? Do they think that their approach works for accommodating that diversity, and how might they change it or make it better? Do they use teamwork or collaboration? in their teaching, because that's also key to our graduate program. If they do, how do they assemble teams? And do they use any particular tools to determine if those teams are working well together? So I want to summarize some of their responses. I'm going to show some of their responses, copy and paste it here, but I'm not going to read it all. I just want to pick out some points. So again, there's only 3 faculty who responded, because those at this point are the 3 main faculty teaching these core classes. So how do you accommodate the diversity of student backgrounds in your classes? And the way that they do that is different approaches. So one is focused on the learning activities, and some of the faculty do actually use teamwork and group assignments that are often aimed at the more high-performing students, but the idea is that students within groups will teach each other and bring each other up to kind of the same level. They also prefer to focus on use of homeworks, assignments rather than exams, with this diversity of backgrounds, and providing a mix of assignments and maybe longer take-home assignments for students to work through. The other is in terms of content and their teaching approach. So I do this in my own class, and other faculty do this, but to do an initial assessment at the beginning of the course to evaluate the range of backgrounds and how well the students might be prepared, because that might motivate an introductory module to bring some of the students up to the level that's required to start the class. And other faculty like to use real hands-on examples to motivate the students, and also to use as tutorials. And in terms of assessment and feedback, when you have this diversity, there's a general trend towards grading somewhat leniently, but also providing detailed feedback so the students know where they can improve. Do you think your approach works, and what would you do differently? And so just some quick responses is that with use of teamwork and group work, they would like to determine better ways to evaluate individual understanding on various concepts. They want to be able to figure out ways to reduce the amount of time that students spend outside of class trying to bring themselves up to the level that they need just to tackle the work in the course. So sort of the prerequisite kind of workload that they have. And some of them are thinking about, when you have this diversity of students, there are those students that are very experienced, and how do you address those students? And so thinking of things like having stretch goals on assignments that those more experienced students can work on to challenge their understanding is one idea that they've put forward. The faculty do use teamwork and collaboration to some extent, but somewhat informally, and mostly allowing students to work together on homework assignments and teaching each other. And how do they assemble students? They basically let the students at this point self-assemble in order to focus on student comfort level, and allowing them to assemble into teams according to their own preferences. But we are working towards approaches that will improve student team diversity, so that there will be more diverse teams that will have greater diversity of backgrounds, so that students can actually learn greater from each other if they have people with a range of experiences. And what kind of tools do they use when they have these team and group works? How do they evaluate the effectiveness of the teams? And I know that several of us actually use peer evaluations within our classes to evaluate how successful the teams have been. And they're usually done anonymously, so the students don't worry about what their other team members are saying. Other faculty use things like GitHub push tracking to determine as a metric for team member contribution as well. So that's just kind of to summarize sort of some of the things that we're thinking about when dealing with this diverse group of students and approaches that some of the current faculty are taking. And I think these are issues that we have to think about when we're trying to integrate these graduate programs that really integrate across quantitative fields to the more life science applied fields. So I'm going to come back to our program, and here's our program of study here. I'm going to outline and just talk about a little bit how we've assembled it and some key elements. So the students within the PhD program take a series of courses, and I've outlined those here. After they completed the majority of these core courses, they'll then move on to complete 2 exams, a comprehensive qualifying exam, and then their typical advancement to PhD candidacy exam. And then we expect them to defend their dissertations, somewhere around the end of their 4th or 5th year. In terms of the coursework, they're grouped according to providing students with computing foundation, with statistical methods foundation, with professional development, with broadening their understanding, And also there's a set of courses that are specific to the particular emphasis area, such as this eco-informatics emphasis that I'm involved in. So this is the coursework that students are required to take. And if we look at these here, I've bolded the ones that are new, and basically in support of our T3 program, our NRT project. So we developed this team-based interdisciplinary research project. We have formalized our eco-informatics seminar, and we've developed a new class on survey and eco-informatics tools. So those are all to meet the expectations of our program and kind of modernize this for our students. And I also just want to illustrate how these different types of courses go into this T3 program that integrates informatics, ecology, and this collaborative team-based approach. So the informatics component is met by these ones in blue and peach, the computing and statistical foundations. The ecology component is essentially met by the seminars, the broadening the understanding, and the eco-informatics emphasis area coursework and activities. And then this team-based interdisciplinary research component focused on collaboration, communication, and professional development is met by these other sets indicated by the yellow and the green: professional development and broadening understanding. And just to talk about this concept of a T-shaped profile a little bit more, this is part of our training plan for the students. The idea is to allow them to develop the T-shaped profile that will meet their goals and their research focus and their career plans. So this is meant to be somewhat flexible. And the idea is that it should balance their training with respect to depth and breadth. So here's just a cartoon of a T-shaped graph that represents 3 different possible students in our program. This is a skill level, so a larger number further down indicates greater knowledge. And then across the top are these 5 different core competency areas that link with the informatics, ecology, and team-based approaches. So student A right here is a student that is building depth and data analytics and computing, but is still building breadth across the other core areas. Student B is building depth in terrestrial ecosystem ecology, but is still also developing skills in these other hard and soft skill areas. And student C here is actually building depth in analysis and synthesis, but is building breadth still across those other core areas. So different students can have these different profiles, and these students are going to be collaborating and working with each other in classes and on research projects, so their skills should be complementing each other. One of the other courses that we are developing, and I'm leading this, is this team-based approach to interdisciplinary research. And this is just a snippet from the course syllabus that was submitted. And the idea here is to provide students with team science skills that they can effectively apply these skills to collaborative projects. They can gain experience in project management, how to develop and implement policies, procedures, and expectations for working in teams. They'll collaborate on a research proposal and preliminary analyses where that project is focused on an ecological or environmentally motivated problem or question, but that requires informatics tools to address because it might require big data, integration across scales, diverse expertise. And as part of that, they'll gain experience writing a compelling research proposal as a team. They'll identify the appropriate methods for conducting the research, and they'll deliver a collaborative presentation. So the final product here really is a research proposal and some preliminary analyses. And some of those teams that are really excited about this may choose to submit a more formal proposal for research funding to as a team-based research grant that they may be awarded through our NRT project. They'll allow them to actually formally conduct the research in collaboration with their team and 1 or 2 faculty mentors. And they can potentially even incorporate this team-based project into their dissertations. And as part of the students going through this graduate program, we have assembled or put together what we call as a multi-cohort progression plan, where the goal is to enhance collaboration among and within cohorts as part of their training. So here's just an example. We have cohort 1 coming in, and they're taking core courses and electives associated with the program of study. Then you get the second cohort coming in, and they're going to be taking some of the same classes with cohort 1, but also with each other. And you keep bringing the cohorts in. And the idea is that they will be taking classes together with the cohort, but also across the cohorts. Not only classes, but other activities, seminars, workshops. and other activities as well. And then we also have these annual retreats or conferences, of which we just had yesterday and this morning, where the students, faculty, postdoc, and staff get together. They share their research from the past year, and we talk about curriculum and changes to the program, things are going well, things that need improvement, and so forth. And one of the things that's come out of this discussion is, even though we were really excited about having this multi-cohort progression plan, we need to reconsider it a little bit, because we need a better balance of effort. We had put some students were taking multiple classes within a semester that were really intensive classes in terms of time commitment. And it would be better to distribute those really time intensive classes across multiple semesters and not all together. And it also led this impression of maybe being a little too restrictive, even though it was suggested. So the idea is to make this as a suggested plan to improve cohort community, but to let the students and advisors modify as needed. Can I come back to this program of study and just talk a little bit about how we have developed these activities centered around professional development, broadening understanding, to present the students and help them in terms of understanding range of potential career paths, and also just exposing them to diversity of research that's out there in general in ecology and informatics, and also to facilitate their networking with our professional communities. So that's mostly achieved through our eco-informatics seminar, but also other activities outside the seminar. So I just want to highlight some of the key components of the seminar. It is not a typical departmental research seminar like most departments have, but it has some elements of that. Here's a summary of the types of seminars are offered. It's a weekly seminar series, and almost 2/3 are kind of your typical research presentation. But over 1/3 of them are dedicated to skills tutorials for the students, both hard and soft skills, centered on things like open science, reproducibility, science communication. And we also have career panels interspersed in there as well. And then here's just a summary of attendance by type. We have lots of students attending, but we also do have postdocs and our faculty attending. And these statistics are pre-COVID, so lots of things changed after COVID, which happened in March, right? But before COVID, here's some of the feedback we were getting from students about the seminar. They really enjoyed the mixture of research-based and skills-building seminars. They liked the panels with postdocs and with federal research scientists. They enjoyed some of the skills tutorials related to reproducibility, open sciences. They liked the diversity. And what I want to focus on a little bit more is this career panel of federal research scientists. The students really got a lot out of that because they didn't understand those careers or how to pursue one of those careers. So following up on that, Andrew Richardson and our group organized 2 additional virtual career panels. And because this is post-COVID or during the COVID era. So these are all on Zoom, which really allowed us to reach out to panelists from across the country. So he brought in panelists from multiple federal research agencies, and most of our students and some of the postdocs attended these panels. And again, they really learned a lot about these careers and strategies for how to pursue them, and maybe for contacting or interacting with scientists at these agencies. Okay, so COVID, it presented new challenges, but also opportunities when delivering some of these courses and these training activities. So in terms of the seminar itself, attendance in last spring actually increased after the onset of the COVID pandemic and when we switched to online Zoom formats. And we adopted this same virtual format in the fall, and we implemented that entire fall series. And because of that virtual format, we were able to recruit an all-star international lineup of speakers, which we're really excited about. Speakers came from Australia, Europe, Canada, and over a dozen US institutions. Many were recognized as leaders in the field, and some are AGU ESA fellows, as well as recipients of some major society awards, and 2 had H indices over 100. So an outstanding group of speakers that our students were able to interact with and to learn from, and bring a diversity of topics. And here's just a general attendance over the fall semester. So organized from the beginning to the end of the semester, broken down by who is attending. So, all of our students are generally attending, and we also have postdocs, a smaller population, and faculty. But because of the virtual format, we had people from outside of NAU, such as federal agencies and also from other institutions within our state and outside the state. And actually even from Europe, we had some people attending. And across the fall semester, the total attendance was about 489. So it's an average of 35 attendance per semester. So it doubled our in-person attendance that we had during the spring. And we're going to continue with this format in the spring, this coming spring. And we have another excellent lineup of speakers and we really focused on diversity this year. So we have people from all sorts of different ethnic backgrounds. It's well split amongst gender and different career stages. So it should be really exciting. And like I said, kind of moving on from the seminar to our virtual format in general, we just completed our second annual retreat for our program. And this is just a shot of from Zoom of some of our participants. And during this during this retreat, we had our students give 5-minute lightning talks. We had 5 first-year and 5 second-year students give those talks. And I was super impressed. These talks really exemplified the integration of informatics, ecology, and environmental science. And I think what's really cool is that even our first-year students that completed 1 semester, we're still giving some really great presentations on that use tools that they've already learned in semester 1 to address some really cool environmental and ecological questions. And then we concluded with a brainstorming session focused on 2 different topics. One is focused on the curriculum and program of study, and the other was focused on non-academic research experiences and networking. And I just want to end my talk here with saying that having these discussions with the students is exceptionally important and critical. So during this discussion about the curriculum and program of study, we've had these discussions with our students over and over the past couple of years. They're key players in this. Their feedback has been essential to improving upon our program and to, I think, will be the success of our program. So we can't do this without the student input. And I just want all of us here to think about that the students have really great ideas and they can tell you about what seems to be working and what's not working. And they've helped us shape the program as it is right now. And with that, I'm going to just end and with our webpage. This is a screenshot from much earlier this year. If you want to visit it and learn about our program, that's our webpage. I just want to also kudos to our first, our cohort 1 and cohort 2 in our T3 program. These are our PhD students that have been recently recruited into the program. And if you have any more questions or want my slides or anything, feel free to contact me by email. And with that, I'll end. I'm sure, I don't know what the time was, but we had a technological problem, so.
It's fine.
Okay.
We're going to give you a round of virtual or non-virtual applause. Thank you, Kiona.
You're welcome.
So people have been putting questions and comments in the chat, which we could look at, or if you want to stop sharing, we can look at the sort of full
I'll stop sharing. I was just worried that if I had to go back and show you guys something that it wouldn't be there anymore, but I've stopped.
Well, okay. So, folks, we can go to the chat and look at those, but if somebody wants to raise their hand and bring up a question or comment, that would be great. Let's see. There's a couple things in the chat from me, Kiona. Let's see. First one was there. Can you read it? Has there been discussion of a sort of whole class team in addition to the small group team as a alternative or adjunct to the small team projects to enhance other aspects of teams?
Well, I'm not quite sure what you mean by a whole class team. I've done this in which you basically choose a somewhat more challenging research project than a small team with limited expertise could do, and the course instructor acts as sort of team manager, and so there's report backs to the whole class. It's another way of sort of fostering understanding of team science too. I mean, that's a good question. I'm not aware of any of the classes that are using it at the whole class level. They're usually smaller teams within a class because a lot of our class sizes are growing now. I mean, I just taught my Bayesian class that had 20 people in it. So that probably wouldn't be manageable. And I know that some of the other core classes where there are projects in are on the order of about 20 graduate students. So I think that they've opted for these smaller teams of anywhere from 2 to about 5.
Right. And then let's see, Jennifer, do you want to ask your question? Is Jennifer still here?
Yeah, sorry, I got caught in lunch. Yeah, I wanted to ask about these types of programs are attractive to a really diverse set of students that often have different backgrounds. So, are there any kind of go-to educational resources, online boot camps, anything that help the students either get ready to enter the program so that they kind of have some basic knowledge of the areas, or help them fill gaps? So if they're like, they don't have as much training in one area as another, there's stuff you can recommend to say, hey, this might be helpful just to get you going.
Yeah, I mean, that is an issue. I know that one of the faculty that teaches all the core stats courses, he's put together links and lists to kind of online tutorial short courses that he recommends students. He doesn't tell them, that you have to do this, but if you have some deficiency, you might want to work through this or go to this program or this link. So I know that some faculty are cognizant of that. I know also some students come in and they do go and take like the sort of basic grad level stats course over in the stats department before they jump into our PhD level classes. They can still count those credits towards their overall degree, but it is, extra coursework that they're taking. And I have my students who come in who may not have as much math background. I'll have them either audit, some undergrad math courses like up through Calc 3 sometimes, or what's the online program? There's an online education program, and now it's on the tip of my tongue, but I can't think of it, where I know that some students have completed like entire modules in calculus and linear algebra.
Okay.
It's a very popular one. Does anybody else?
There's edX, there's
like Khan Academy.
Yeah. Khan Academy. Yeah.
Okay. That's helpful. Thanks.
Yeah. And then I put in this question about the model here. So I like to think of this as graduate education can follow what I call the math department model, where you got a whole bunch of courses. The students don't really get started on their own research until after they've gone through this whole set of courses. And that's because math is structured that way to get to the level of being able to understand things. And stat programs are often the same way. Yeah. Whereas ecology programs, and you've got students coming in from bio backgrounds, many ecology programs, students might have very limited course requirements formally, and then they get started on research right away in somebody's lab. So it seems as if this is the model that is the more math.
It's a combo, right? It's not like the math stat model because we don't have as many core classes are required in the first 2 years. And I'm familiar with that model too. My husband went through that, and I did master's in stats. Yeah. But it's not the ecology model either, where you basically don't have any core requirements. You just take classes according to your research interest. So some combination. But all the students are actually working on research in their first year. Like I said, with the lightning talks, we had most of our first year students, after completing one semester, give excellent presentations on the research that they've done so far. And part of that is because within our courses, there are projects and so forth, and they're really geared to allow students to work on a project that's going to integrate into their dissertation research. So all of them took this new class, this informatics tool, surveying informatics tools, very project oriented, and they all had to work on a project that was related to their dissertation somehow. So that's one way, is like integrating the coursework itself with their dissertation in some way so they can get going on research right away. But they all do start on research in their first year to some extent.
And does that mean that they're tied into a lab or a faculty member's research group right away too?
In general, that's the case. We have admitted some students who hadn't identified a faculty member, but in the current funding situation, that's hard though, because we don't have a ton of TAs, and I'm sure that there's many programs like that here. So the way that students are going to be admitted with funding is on a research assistantship, maybe on a teaching assistantship, or on like one of our NRT T3 fellowships. And we have offered those T3 fellowships to, a couple of students who had not fully identified an advisor. And we thought, okay, we'll give them the opportunity to do that in their first year. But, at least one of them declined and went someplace else. So.
Okay. Let's see. I think there's a hand. Corinne has her hand up.
Yeah, I just have a quick question. So for the classes that you designed that were specific for your NRT cohort, do you offer those classes to students outside of your cohort? I imagine you can't just have a class of 4 students or 5 students. And how have you kind of handled that?
Yeah, no, they're definitely open outside of our T3 students. And we refer to them as our T3 students, but really it's just that we have this funding that's allowing us to build and improve upon our PhD program in general. So once our funding goes away, these courses are still going to be here and they're still going to be part of our PhD program requirements. So yes, they're not restrictive to those students. And the goal is to actually get other students from our informatics program and from across campus in some of these classes, because I think it'll just be, bring greater diversity of skills, interests, and background.
So I have a question about the underlying T metaphor. And so you're well aware that there is this discussion about T-shaped students and pi-shaped students, and so to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, I look at what you've got, and to me, some of those students are actually getting deep knowledge of ecology, or at least certain areas of ecology, as well as deep knowledge of particular tools or approaches on the more informatics side. So are they not maybe more pie-shaped individuals?
Well, and they can certainly be pie-shaped. I think if you were asked a statistician, of which my husband is a statistician in our department, he would say, they are not getting enough statistics training. They cannot be statisticians. If you're to ask the computer scientists in our department, they are not getting enough computer science training. They're not computer scientists, right? So depending on where you're coming from, they think that the level of training that they're getting is really building the breadth. And if they want to build the depth, they got to really do more than what's in the core classes. So I would think with our core classes, it is building more depth in those areas than a typical student going through, a graduate program in ecology, for example, might have. But they're really, it's a diversity, and they don't build a lot of depth in any. They don't have enough time really to build a lot of depth in more than one of those areas, although it's possible, given some of them are coming in with, we have a student in here actually has a PhD in math, so he already has that bar. And then he wants to build the bar in like ecology or statistics, right? So he will have 2 bars. He'll be a pie-shaped.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Are there other questions? There's a comment from Easton about a program in Vermont. Easton, do you want to say something?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Just thinking that it sounds very, very similar. And it's one of those things that in general, I think what's really nice about this group is thinking about kind of knowing what else is out there. And so being able to compare between these programs, I think is a really cool thing between NRTs, but also just general, quantitative programs to talk about. So yeah, curious to just compare notes a little bit after the workshop.
Okay. Well, that's what the birds of a feather session is for, in part. So that's great. Maybe we should have called one of them NRT programs. You can find each other.